All right, we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. I'm bringing you guys another You Gotta Hear This episode because we've got an interesting topic and I've got a very interesting guest. And every once in a while, we do one of these You Gotta Hear This. When something new comes up that I think is worth your time, worth your listen, and most definitely worth your attention. So I've got with me today a gentleman named Martin Zizi. He is him and I are gonna chat a little bit about the difference between solving the problem of bots and authentication, and if you guys have a mobile phone or some authentication requirement, you know that you've got your fingerprint, your eyeballs, your face, and all other manner of things when you've got the device in your hand. But what happens at a larger scale across the internet? Or what happens with devices that actually have to tell the difference between a human being and a robot as the world continues to merge into robotics. So, Martin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, Raphael, and I'm happy that you have me.
I thought this would be a really good episode because there's been a lot of talk about authentication. There's been a lot of talk about anti-botnet detection and human transactions, and how do we get better passwords, and how do we authenticate users better. And literally 10 minutes before we started this, I made a large purchase on a card and immediately got the text that said, "Hey, was this you?" And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Yes, that was me. Please make my money go away." But clearly it didn't. There was no fidelity in the fact that a human pushed that button, which was me. So let's bring in the big old pink elephant in the room, right? So biometrics and the essentials of talking through identifying a person in a connected world. And let's start with your background, because we have to establish who you are, because I think the people are going to want to know. You've got a very colorful background, Martin.
Colorful to say the least. It's an hybrid. Essentially, people will be shocked to hear that I start as a clinician. I'm an MD, PhD, like a lot of people, but I got a fancy for research and physics. So while treating patient in Brussels in another life, I went also back evening in physics to do research, because my problem was to understand how life hacked. It's good to know that cell divide in cancer, but what are the mechanisms? And this, you need to know biophysics. So I became a biophysicist. Then I left practice. I did a lot of research in various domains. I ended up teaching physiology, mostly neuroscience. And because I play with computers since my 12 and my 13 years old. So essentially, now I moved since 10 years in the mobile technology world, trying to blend the little things I think I know, because the more you know, the less you know, because there is more question coming up. So the little thing that I
True
think
story.
I know, I try to bring them to a positive use, because as a professor, which was my past life till 12 years ago, I might be good or bad. That you have to ask the student. But I didn't produce anything for society. So it's kind of now, I think I trained myself enough, and it's time that I give something of value, if possible.
Yeah, well, this is certainly a topic of value. Look, you're not the first person to bring this topic up, but you're certainly one of the more unique in terms of your background. Let's talk about the problem. Let's identify what we're trying to solve for here. It's not necessarily this is dealing strictly with human machine interaction. Yes.
Yes. And if you want to take it, let's take a 30,000 feet view to start up with, and then zoom in depending on the need and the flow of the conversation. The world is getting more and more connected, and the internet is a fantastic tool. It's like the press from Gutenberg. But the way we implement it, a technology is neutral. We can use it for the benefit of us all, for the benefit of humanity, or we can use it for repressing. If you look at the Great Firewall of Internet in China, it's the same technology. Technology is neutral, but a different use case. And this is the highest level that people have to understand when we go into this problem with biometrics. What do we want the Internet to be? And mostly the IoT and all the connected world. Because in the ideal world, this is not a vision. It's coming in from our eyes. This has to decrease friction. We can do better. We're only for the moment we're 7-8 billion on the planet. I don't believe in crushing down the numbers. I think we can feed and be happy on the planet at the level of 10, 20, 30 billion. But to reach that, and even to go multiplanetary as a species, like Elon would say, we need to be more effective. And more effective is using technology to decrease waste wherever we can, but not at the cost of breaching my privacy. It's not because I do nothing wrong that I give you the right to look at my life or in my underpants. Privacy is democracy, and that's a 30,000 feet question. We have to use technology for positive. And the question is not who does what, it's how you do it. And I think that our conversation will focus on the how. I'm sorry to have a long answer to a stupid short question, but it's a very important question, and I think it deserves a detailed answer.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, and I think that frames it well. Leveraging technology there's so many possibilities in how we identify ourselves to anything, right? There have been stories of wearables that help identify where military installations are. There have been news stories in the past of various devices that accidentally tracked and revealed everything from the location of a terror cell because somebody posted a tweet with their location turned on, or information from a picture, or whatever, right? All the way down to the simple things we do every day, i.e. financial transactions, and essentially proving who we are to a piece of technology. But I got to tell you, it is getting increasingly complex, which doesn't necessarily give me a lot of hope that it's getting better, to tell the difference between a piece of software and a live human being. So maybe let's address that.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I will go deeper immediately. It's because technology beats technology. The tool to impersonate you, the tool to create deep fake. I mean, come on, man. I could have you dancing a tango with Saddam Hussein tomorrow, thanks to mobile tool put by Samsung out, and it will look real. So where are you? Saddam is dead for years. You understand? So the technology is so refined and so very well made, and that's a plus, that we can generate fake information, fake persona, and we can fake identity. Problem one. Second problem, we can spoof. Even without faking, I can hijack what you do at the right moment and control. And I can, for example, fingerprint. I will speak practicalities here. When Apple Pay, and I admire Apple Pay as a product, it's swift, it's easy. But the day of its release, it was hacked by the Chaos Computer Club in Germany, when a bunch of youth took the picture with an iPhone, because that was the provocation, of the aunt of Genscher, the defense minister of Germany at the time. We're speaking a few years ago, and they could enter his phone. Because with the camera of these babies, you can get high-resolution picture that you can extract the fingerprint information. For example, the eyeball. The eyeball. That was the movie scene. Actually, you don't need to be gross. I'm respecting life. I don't need to gouge you high out to steal your identity. If I have the picture of your scan, your iris scan from your phone, if I get it, I can print it on this soft contact lens printer. Can do that, and then I put a contact, and I'm you. I will be you for everyone except for your dear wife, because she might tell the difference.
Right. Well, we hope. but so that is.
And I want to finish with the consequence of that, because technology beats technology. That's evident, I think. And again, the how. But what are the consequences of that? It's huge and staggering. If I were to tell you that 7% of all financial transactions, whether it's EFT, the card, credit, anytime you use a remote payment or a card, 7% is impersonated and fraud. But that doesn't say anything. What are the number? The total number in the US of transactions on a yearly basis, you have 122 billion transactions like that. It's huge. I mean, it's daily. And the total sum, Raphael, the sum of all those transactions, you see it, because you will be blown away. It is 79 trillion. That was a few years ago, though it's probably 80 or 82. And when I tell you that 7% of this goes up in smoke, we're not dealing, peanuts, a billion here and there, 100 billion here and there, and pretty soon we talk real money. But why is not this a scandal? And I tell you why. Because it's an insurance model. We all pay. Essentially, the beauty of insurance is that they spread the risk. So your credit card is insured. If it's stolen or impersonated, they will refund you. They will refund you. So now imagine if we got rid of 50% of this fraud, it could optimize prices down. Because for the moment, we have on any item we buy, and it's small money, so no one feels the pain, literally. But on aggregate, we speak about hundreds of billion, right? So if we were to optimize that, we could have a more for the economy. And the same thing for medical identity when you have the possibility of fraud, for insurance claim, etc. And this is just a fraud. But you can have malicious now attack because the same technology can be used by state actor or by terrorist organization, but bad guy.
Yeah.
And you understand, we are now in the middle of cyber warfare. And if we use the bad reflex, that means if we shield ourselves like a citadel, we imitate the bad guys. It's no longer the USA, it's no longer Europe, because we kill democracy. So I think the challenge for the people is to understand that we can win a warfare, because technology beats technology, but you have to be smarter and not close yourself up, because a citadel ends up being a prison. You and I, we're happy to be able to travel. We're happy to have this discussion. We're happy to say dirty words. I don't want this to change because I'm too old to change, probably.
I'm there with you. So the notion that we can identify a person, I mean, it started with a simple password, right? And bots got that. And then we got into fingerprints, and then we've got into, facial recognition. And the early, like as you mentioned, the early facial recognition was defeated, quite frankly, with a photo, right? As the geometry was right. Then it started doing 3D geometry, and now phones have their own chip to do the kind of processing that takes. But it's still the problem persists, right? Because it's an arms race. It's always going to be an arms race.
Yes, it is a weapons race, and I want to intervene. I'm sorry to cut you. I want to intervene on face rec, 2D, 3D. The 3D face rec is fantastic because it's micro texture, so it looks at 3,000 points on your face, and they change and rotate the point every time. So you have a high density mapping of your face. It's not a picture anymore. It's a mapping, like a cartography. The problem is that the technology is not very female friendly because it's too sensitive, too detail minded, and or girlfriend, mom, colleague, whoever female we know might have problem with face rec because we have such thing as blush, makeup, but more than that, physiology. When someone wake up, and it's mostly a female problem, the face a bit puffy, different. So they cannot enter their phone. They cannot payment. They cannot make payment. And then you have hormonal change. So, and then you have coding bias that are known because the machine works better on white male than on, for example, ethnic females. But that we could solve because it's a question of recoding the thing and doing better stats. But intrinsically, if a method is too deep in the collection of information, you have to collect good information at optimal level, you may end up killing yourself again because face rec 3D is essentially, and you've heard it here first, not compatible with 50% of humanity, the female part. And the answer of the big company having invested in that is, well, they might take 2 or 3 profiles. Yeah, get 2 or 3 profiles. You see, again, how we do things is more relevant than what we do.
Yeah. So it continues. I mean, look, we escalate. We start with this is going to be a simple solution, and then that simple solution doesn't work for everybody. And you talked about inherent bias. This is a problem the IT industry has as a whole, right? The algorithms and the machine learning that's out there is inherently and unfortunately biased based on the kind of models we use, the representative data set that we use, who codes it. Okay, fine. So we can try to solve for that, and we are. There's lots of working groups for that. I feel like I feel like that part we can get, but all that does is complicate the solution more.
Yes,
I
yes.
want something simpler. I want something
Okay,
simple. I want something accurate, and I want it to be quick.
okay.
You know what
Then
I
now
mean?
we can go through. Yeah, I know what you mean. We'll cut the meat now. Essentially, in the fake world where technology beats technology, you need to bring reality back. And the central point is the user, the human in us. Because in a world where fake are supported by bot and code, no matter how well they're coded, no matter how well they're written, they don't have a nerd beat, they don't have a brain beat. So if you bring the physiological data, and now you understand why being a former neuroscientist might help me doing this, bringing
Yeah.
the neurophysiology into it has two major consequences. We can prove at all time that we're alive. We're not a bot. So we might be a bad actor, but I'm a person, and the amplification of my messaging or my
Okay.
dark reach on the internet is cut down to a single position, mine, because the bot will be blocked. So segregating human from bot is huge. It's needed. Liveliness is needed because of the example used when in Mission Impossible they go gauge the eye. If they had liveliness, it wouldn't work,
Right.
etc. And the third problem is physiology usher a revolution. The body truly becomes the password. Yeah, you have to imagine, and we build the technology, but you have to imagine that if you go seamlessly across the internet, interacting with your printer, the front of your car, even the passport gate at SFO. I'm based in San Francisco, but wherever you are and whatever your airport is, in a seamless way because your body is your identity and you can decide how you share it because you don't want to reveal your identity at all time. But in the Internet of Things, if the body becomes the password, you have the ultimate entropy and you can at the same time have the ultimate cryptography. So what physiology gives is a space solution, highly resistant to hacking, impossible to spoof. No two bodies are alike, and we will I can explain that. And in the end, that can bring liveliness and at the same time segregate human from bot. And I think physiology will be part of biometrics because it's alive. And in the world we live with bad actor and cyber warfare is amplified by bot. Just the fact that you're a human and not a cat's tail, not a rabbit paw, and not a table corner is immensely useful.
Okay. All right. So that sounds really cool, but does the technology exist? This is where I think my questions start to become less theoretical and more, all right, how does rubber meet road? Because this little device that I carry around with me, it's got all kinds of sensors on it, right? It's got
Yes.
gyroscopes and accelerometers and doohickeys and what's its, and so does this, right? This my watch does the
Yes.
same thing.
Yeah.
How do we need new tech? Do we take the tech we
No.
have and do something with it? So tell me about how we solve this because I'm now definitely interested in how we get that, as you said, liveliness to solve at least some of that determination between human and non-human.
Well, the technology exists because we have two ways to. I mean, the proof of being alive. If the sensor on the phone, you have many. You have the vision, you have the microphone, you have the MEMS, which is accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer. You have quite a lot of sensors there, and they're also on tablet. So I'm speaking about the mobile world, not the desktop world, which would need another contraption. So there is ways. I can describe you 10,000, not 10,000, but 4 or 5 ways. Even outside of the domain of neuroscience. For example, heartbeat. You and I have an heartbeat. So, induction plate that is on your watch or the phone, you have all these app already measuring AKG. So there is no technological problem, and you don't need an add-on because for the AKG, because of safety standards and FDA, you need a special type of processing. Otherwise, but just to have an heartbeat, even with the image or a pulse ox, and I think the app exists again, you can prove that. So, for example, if you were to add liveliness to true liveliness to facial recognition, when someone does that, the blood flow in the skin comes in and out. The photometric camera in the phone is able to measure that wave of reddish red blood cell. So we can see that there is a wave in your, let's say, in the painting of your face. And then we can say, oh, that's a live person. Because let's say if I'm a coder, I'm an obnoxious guy, and I code this wave of red, I can theoretically impersonate that. But the heartbeat has some specific particularities, and that means it's not easy to code. It's not just a mathematical sinusoid for function, and then if this became a problem, you measure 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and you see that the code failed to meet the real life test. And there you go. So I'm very open. I think there is a lot and enough without adding useless hardware to do smarter technology. And liveliness can be also, I told you, heartbeat, a brain beat. Well, we can talk about that later. It's even faster. You can also have things like breathing. I mean, you can, microphone can be used too. So essentially, if a bank transfer would request me, my name is Martin Zizi and my game is, it could be, that's a reference to a very special movie, but I know that you know the movie. But the thing is, at the end, we can extract physiological information. So I said physiology is my body. Enough sensor exists that could tap information from my body, and that could give liveliness. You have the choice.
Okay, so we can detect the person as a human, alive, and not a bot.
Alive.
So the second part of the problem is then, determining whether you are actually you, or whether it's somebody. So solving the passwordless world problem. All right, can we do that? Can we do that?
We can do that too. First, to complete the liveliness. Liveliness is proving you're alive, which is valuable, but you need also to know that segregating human from bot is the key winning factor in the future cyber war. Now, knowing a human, you from me, is doable too. And again, you have many biometrics. You will never hear from me that those people do bad things or good things. It's how you do it. For example, and I want to tell the audience something about the fingerprint sensor, because to have computing time that is doable on the machine, the full fingerprint that's highly unique, because it's forensics, right? The chance of having two identical is 1 per billion. I don't know the math, but it's very different.
It's rare.
Otherwise, the CIA wouldn't be effective, or the FBI, right? So at the end of the day, we have a good biometric information. But why is it not solid? First, it has no liveliness. But beside that, because a picture could replace it, the groove and the complexity of the problem is reduced. And in the end, the fingerprint sensor reduced the data set to, it used to be 472 data point. So, and then at this reduced set, the chance of having two humans having the same fingerprint becomes 1 in 50,000.
Ooh,
so
that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. So again, it's not what, but how. And why is that? Because they need, if I had a gazillion pixel that I analyze, it will take 5 minutes to get in. So if I want this to happen in 0.2 seconds, I need to reduce the problem. But there is always an optimum in the reduction, and that's where I think the field, that's not an accusation, because it's easy to criticize when you're on the sideline. But I think some people are too eager to go too fast without asking the right question. Because if you reduce a data point, and then the marketing comes. Because when you have the marketing saying, oh, did this fingerprint and one chance in 10 billions to be, or an alien cannot enter your phone. Well, it's 1 in 50,000, sir, because you reduce the question, you reduce the data. Now, that means I use that as an example to say, let's focus on the how. And now, how can I recognize people from each other as we're speaking now in a better way using liveliness and using biosignal? And I can mention 3. For example, voice. You know that voice used to be present as a fantastic biometry, and it is. But voice was hacked, but the how is important. voice is nearly perfect. False positive, true positive. If you do the confusion matrix and the efficacy and the accuracy, voice is great. But the problem is that voice synthesizer, the weapon race, are able to reproduce your voice with good coding and a sample to pitch perfection that a machine trained for voice recognition is fooled. But why is that? It's because they use raw signal. No, but it happened 2 years ago. I think it was l'Union des Banques Suisses, UBS, because they used to have a very solid system by phone, etc. I know it faltered. But the problem is how, again, they use raw signal. So if I say my name is Martin Zizi, if this is used in all spectral analysis, a machine can have a sample my voice and reproduce it to perfection. But if we extract feature, the raw signal, you get rid of it. And you do complicated math to extract some feature, some essential characteristic of your voice. It's like having the keyboard of a piano. You have a tune. The tune that you play on the piano is your voice. But the feature function, the mathematic that you extract, for this voice, for these 30 seconds or 1 second, I extract this and this and this as parameter. I like the key of a keyboard of a piano. So if you don't know the key of the instrument, you're nowhere. You can have the right sound, the right tune, you play it well, but it won't sound good. So you understand, using raw signal is a failing methodology, because in the world of big data, what big data creates, training, big data can uncreate imitation. And in the same for face rec, where some people across the world, some scientists could generate generic figure, generic image of people, vanilla people, that could penetrate 17 to 23%. So again, I sound like a maniac, and I'm a maniac. It's the how. And now I said about voice implemented the right way would be a perfect way to get a liveliness and a biometrical identifier at the same time. Heartbeat, I mentioned that a few minutes ago. Same thing. It's better, but the problem of heartbeat is its slowness. Why? An heartbeat is 1 beat per second, 2 at max if you run, or 3 if you run too fast and are near dying. But in the end, you don't have. Your maximal heartbeat is 180. So if you go above that, you might have some minor problem, like sudden death. So you recognize, but you're dead. The thing is, if you look at heartbeat and pulse, it's a slow signal. So you need to have enough information per unit time. That means that you cannot get it in half a second. You have to get it in 30, 40 seconds. And it will be pretty solid. But then you say it's not a user product. Well, I beg to differ. It's a user product for some niche, because there are some applications for which I'm not compulsed into entering my phone in half a second. You understand? So essentially, there are many, it's beyond the scope of this interview, to have application use case where speed of access is not the issue, but security and safety is. So it's a trade-off. And then you have the nerve system, so that I cover everything: voice, heartbeat, and nerve. The brain beat is fast. People are misconceiving the brain. They think that the brain is a slow organ. Hell, yes, it's slow, 10, 20 times a second, but these are waves of billions of network. When the networks start to think, they desynchronize, and let's say in a small surface, if you have half a billion network, or a million network, they all do their thing at a different time t. So essentially, it's having multi-parallel information. And to give you an example, because otherwise it's too theoretical for the audience, in my hand, for example, I have here probably 500,000 muscle fibers, okay? And they all twitch 10 times a second. And that means that they twitch independently. They control each by a different part of the brain, a different little pixel in my cortical brain. So essentially, if it's 10 a second, let's make it 1 million. I'm not good at math. So it's 10 million hertz, because at any given seconds, I have 10 million, a bandwidth, and the techie will understand, of 10 million, 10 million, so 10 megahertz between my hand and my brain. That's effing crazy. But now, not everything is useful information, but you understand. So depending on the use case, I think Voice will find a niche, but done the appropriate way. Heartbeat
Yeah.
will find a niche, but done the appropriate way. And the nerve system will find its natural niche, but once again, done the appropriate way. I come back to my how it's done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we make the movie reference, right? From Sneakers. My voice is my password. Verify me. I love that line because it was, voice was so authentic, and it was in all the spy movies. It was always the voice that would authenticate you, and then you realize what you just said. The deep fakes took it beyond voice. They created entire people, and so you look at that and go, wow, that's incredible. How far technology has come. Okay, so this is all amazing. My brain is about to explode with information. But so I got to ask, you're obviously addressing this problem in the real world, solving some of these issues. Tell me what you do and how you do it the right way, the appropriate way.
Well, I'm not the only person who has solution. I have to be humble too, as I said, because the more you learn, the less you know in the end. There are more questions that comes. For me, I work on the nerve system. I'm a neuroscientist. I'm a biophysicist. I'm not afraid of having a megahertz of information. I just kill 99% of it and I go fishing for what I need. So you do a lot of good digital signal processing. I explained already that to reach unhackability, you need to have feature extraction, not using raw signal. And there is a critical thing about doing it right before I go to the product we're building that I want the audience to understand. It's the non-storage in database. Think about it. All we do across the internet, and the internet at scale is getting gigantic, we store in database, centralized. And then we have data breach. And you say, yeah, but you have a breach here and there, and most of it is safe. Well, not with biometry. You and I can survive the loss of a credit card. But you change credit card, you lose a few, and you survive.
Right.
You're bitching like hell for 3 weeks, but you survive. But
Yeah.
you don't lose, you don't survive the loss of your finger, of your face, because then you're out forever. You're a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
So biometry is essentially not compatible with database. So the conclusion is everything has to happen at the edge. The edge is the device. So everything, even the damn AI, has to be computed. And inference is easy, but computation, the training has to happen at the mobile stage, at the edge of the edge. And now we are phone, but in the future we will go deeper. So essentially, I'm sorry, I know that I go back to your direct question. That's the how. Now, essentially what we do, I'm listening.
No, what I was going to say is you got to package all that up into something that's low power enough so that you're not, driving all the battery out, because I can imagine you said it's computationally expensive to do it right. So how in the world do you design something that takes the right amount of signal, extracts the features, does all the computation on the edge? Because at this point I'm thinking, all right, tell me about it, 'cause I'm dying here.
Okay, you will love it. And it comes with age. Do you remember what a CRT is in TV? The cathode ray tube.
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yes,
okay,
I do.
That's the explanation. I'm not crazy. In the visual processing that we do know on the flat screen, an image is made by gazillion pixels, and every pixel fluctuates in time. That's why when you want to do things in a graphic mode, you need this neural net, and it is computation crazy and computing intensive. But I'm old enough to be your dad, and I remember that the image of my old TV set with my parents was a vector, a line that was flicked around and back and forth. This is the keyword, vectorization of data. You don't need an infinite precision. If you transform an image, not in a graphic, but as a vector, you can use legacy system like, the MAC, all the CPU. They actually Mac processor, the vector processing unit, the VPU, they're great at processing and crunching number in a vector format. So you don't need a GPU even to do image analysis. You just have to vectorize your image. That sounds crazy. It's simple. It goes where the whole field doesn't go, but only in a brain that knows and remember what the whole TV set is and can it be generated. And I don't blame others. But when you build a startup like mine, you want to go fast, effective, and cheap. And I can get the same resolution from neural net. From you have various way of classifying. You have the neural net, but you have also the super vector machine. You have the random forest in all their shape and form. We have like 10 classifier. No, we don't have 10. We have 9, and we double them. Working on mobile phone at certain time without draining the battery. It's equivalent to taking one picture. That's not bad.
Huh.
And
no.
Yeah, it's a real problem when you're mobile, and if entering in your bank account drain your phone, you don't do it twice. So you're essentially ineffective. So battery drain for the technology, even the training for us is one picture. We don't use picture, but it's equivalent in terms of energy consumption of taking a high resolution picture. And then the function, you should not have it at all time. You should ping it when needed, and then the fraction of a second you don't drain the battery. So that's the techie part. Now to come back to the authentication, etc. You know that if you look at what we do is essentially what I did with the company, and I have fantastic people around me. It's the dream of Elon Musk of having a neural tapping interface, Neuralink. I speak about a competitor. Sorry, they use external electrode or internal electrode or implant. That's one way to do it. Me, because I'm stupid and cheap, I get it with the sensor already present. I don't need any of external contraption. But there is a trade-off. I will never be able to see what you think, but I can see who you are. And how is that done? Is that because because the brain network on the motor region are stabilized after puberty. And being stable, it's akin and they influence the contraction of the individual muscle cell under my skin. So I have a specific gigantic array of network controlling, and it's not about motion. It's even there when I don't move. It's close to the noise level of the sensor. It is the spontaneous activity controlling the quality of motion, the muscle tension, etc. So at this level of resolution, you can find information that correlates with the neuroanatomy. And so the same way my face is different than yours, your brain is wired differently than mine. And because you learn to walk, to stand, to swim, to bike, to fall from the bike, get back on it differently than I did. And it goes to the extent of your twin brother. If you don't have, invent one. Your twin brother, even if he has the same genetic and the same brain, he learned to walk and to have different life experience. So the network are different, even twins. Whereas with face rec, good luck with twins. You understand? So the resolution, the brain resolution is infinite. And be aware, when the alien come, I will try to sell them my gear because it will work on any nerve system. I will say, forget about your futuristic technology. We have the neuroprint. So essentially, we came with the neuroprint and we use the name neuroprint to explain to the crowd, this is like a fingerprint, but it lays in your brain, nerve, and muscle, the neuromuscular system. And because it's unique, and the sensor of those babies and the tablet can tap it, and we can make sense of it in an appropriate way, it's like having, at any given time, 1 million long character password in your body. And you don't have to remember it. But if you touch a surface, let's say half a second, or a second or 3 seconds, depending on the need, you're in the web page, you're through the bank account, and the body becomes truly the password. And because it has also to protect privacy, because I think we started this conversation by we need to protect our democracy and our privacy. We need to be mindful about how we do things. The same password, when I say password, is an encryption key. So essentially, the entropy of the nervous system gives you an infinite power of encryption. So at the same time, I'll have all my data on my mobile or my tablet, but I can encrypt them. All the transactions encrypted by my body. And if I don't want to share them, there is no way on hell, come hell or high water, that unless I allow you, because I touch a device without stress, because if you put a gun on me, I might not be recognized as much. Voilà. So essentially, unless I want you to look in my underpants, you ain't going there. I'm sorry.
That's fantastic. That is a lot of okay. So that's a lot that we covered. That is some really interesting technology. I'm looking forward to that because there's been just again so much talk about all the ways that current tech is sort of the arms race, and I'm actually, I didn't stop you, but I'm actually glad you're not going in and tapping my nerve. I don't really want people to read my mind. What I write is usually enough. Thank you. But right. But it's good to have an ability to the solving the human robot problem is good. And then the identification part. I'm actually really interested to see how you guys evolve. Give me the company name, because I'm sure people are going to want to hear it.
Okay. Aerendir. Aerendir. It spells Aerendir. It comes from the Lord of the Ring for the initiated. Yes. And I have a story, if I have 10 seconds, because you're going to either love it or hate it. You remember in Lord of the Ring, what is a Palantir? Palantir is the eye of the devil.
It's been a while.
Sauron has this stone.
Okay.
Well, then I refresh your memory. The Palantir is the eye of the devil. The devil that looks across time and space and can predict things. The Palantir is the tool of the bad guy. I happen to know a company, which I respect, by the way, because it's a joke, that is named Palantir and does that. They try to predict crime. And me, I said, well, I will be the other guy. And who is Aerendir? An halfling raised by human who cut quite a few things from the bad guy. So essentially, it's like you have Palantir, and they're not bad guy, but it's the joke of the Lord of the Ring. And you have Aerendir, the human, the half-human, half-elf princeling who wins. And I hope to win.
You know what? It's a great tech. I appreciate you spending some time. I know this is. I think both myself, as I go to eventually post this. As I edit, I'll probably listen to it at least 2 more times because there's a lot of data, a lot of information we packed here.
Yes,
folks, yeah. So look, folks, if you're listening to this the first time and you're going, okay, my brain exploded. It's okay, mine did too. It's okay to hit rewind and do this
mine
again.
Mine too. to finish this, when I got the idea, I got the idea of the technology and the company. It was in 2014. I was shuttling back and forth between Frankfurt and San Francisco. I was living on both sides and working on another company. And I got to hear from my CTO that the sensor in the phone are dirt cheap. And I said, they can be. Yeah. So I got this card, free Wi-Fi by, one of the major airlines linking both continents back then, 2014. So I went online on the plane, nothing else to do. And I look at the price of the sensor. And then I had this epiphany because I look at the specification. You'll see that for the accelerometer micro G, 5 to 7 micro G, 5 millionths of a G force. Wow. For the rotational positioning, it is essentially a fraction. I'm not remembering if it's 100 or even less of a degree of rotation angle at 1 nanosecond. I mean, this is crazy. And I say, but this cannot be because they would be expensive because sensors, the performance is linked to price. No, they're dirt cheap. Why? Because they've been sold by the billion to the car industry. Think about airbags. An airbag has to work to avoid you being cut or beheaded, right? And same thing, think about your internal combustion engine with the yaw, the pitch, and the roll of your car. These are not position, they are parametrization for the fuel injection. So all these, and seatbelt. So all these MEMS sensors are a boon to humanity. They've been sold by the billion to the automotive industry, so they cost nothing at scale. And I have a visual about good old Steve Jobs. Imagine the team of the iPhone. They have a problem. The screen has to stay, up, whatever the position. And I can see good old Steve said, I don't care, get me the cheapest thing to put on the phone. A COTS, an off-the-shelf device. And it turns, this never happened, okay? This is my imagination. But it could have happened because it is what happened. They put inside the mobile technology the more cheap sensor, which happened to be the best ever designed by engineers. And when I saw that, and I was in the plane, when I landed in Frankfurt, then in Brussels, I took an old phone. It was a Nexus, if I remember. I did something. I got an app from the internet. I downloaded it. I got some of my hand, left, right. I tried to make calibration curve, etc. And this was an epiphany moment. After an hour, I could get some kind of 10 touch my control, and then I touch to see. And I use crude math, not even neural net, no training, just average. And I take my phone, my old phone in my hand, and I look at the same result of the app, and I see 50, 60, 70% identity with my pseudo calibration curve. Then I change hand, and I see 30, 20, 40, close to 50. So there is not an overlap. Then I put the damn phone on the table, and I see 050505, and I say, wow, I better create my company. And that's how it came from. It came from a plane trip, boredom on the plane, the fact that at the time they tried to promote free Wi-Fi in the air. I had nothing better to do. And the conversation with the person that dropped me at SFO, San Francisco International Airport, and say, oh yeah, by the way, Martin, I checked the price of this sensor, 80 cents or 94 cents a piece. I say, fucking crazy, that cannot be. That's where R&D came from.
Wow. Well, that is one hell of a story, Martin. Thanks for joining us on the show. We are out of time. Martin Zizi from Arendeer. What a story, guys. You got to hear this. Share this far and wide, because it's some very interesting information. Martin, we're going to have you back at some point to hear the amazing things that you guys have accomplished. But until then, thanks for being on the show.
Raphael, I wish you the best day, and kiss your rabbit from me, will you?
All right, folks, this has been yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you another time, another place, on yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao.